Hello and welcome to Podtoid. I'm CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dan.
I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Occams. And I'm Occams. and I'm Occams. I'm Occams.
Oh, the gang's all here
I'm
this
Occams.
week.
I'm Occams.
Who boy, I'm Occams.
Put the lotion in the basket.
Sadly, I am not Occams. This is episode 447. Thank you all for joining us. We have hopefully what's going to be a good show prepared for you today. Hey, Chris, just real quick. Are you as sick of the month of E3 as I am?
It's only just started, right? Like, really?
Yeah, like really, we're in the first week of 3 more weeks of hell.
What a horrible year. I'm just putting my head down and pushing forward.
In any other year, we'd be done. Like, we'd be done by now. We wouldn't be having the show right now because I'd still be coming back from LA, and all of the game announcements would be out. We'd be working on think pieces or whatever, or recapping the show, and we'd just be moving on to something else. But no, we can't do that this year because we have 9,000 more streams to follow. There's one going on right now as we record.
And there's still a lot of the big ones, like the bigger publishers to go. Like, we've still got EA to go, right? Yeah. And Ubisoft and
Xbox.
The Xbox itself. Yeah.
I was thinking this morning that it's Beyond Good and Evil 2 has been conspicuous in its absence, and then I realized, well, Ubisoft hasn't actually presented anything yet.
I wouldn't anticipate Beyond Good and Evil 2 being at Ubisoft show anyway, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so far, there's been no sign of the bat.
Right. There's no bat yet.
It's the bat.
But you know what? There have been a lot of old trailers that we've already seen. It's like this is like the E3 version of Hallmark's Countdown to Christmas, but at least Hallmark gives you nothing but new movies. I saw a trailer that I saw a year and a half ago. I don't need to see that. Don't waste my time with that. I don't need to just be reminded something's coming out.
I hear you, but yesterday there was a live stream, one that necessitated 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it was hosted by a robot and also his mechanical sidekick. But I just want more robots hosting. More 80s star robots. He looked like a telebug, which is like dating everybody. Nobody knows what I just mentioned. Nobody knows what I just mentioned. Jim Sterling will know. If Jim Sterling was listening, he'd know what a telebug is. But it looked like a telebug. But I did enjoy having the guy having a robot sidekick. I wish that was like de rigueur for E3.
That's what they need to bring the Rocky IV robot back for. Like, he needs to be the co-host on all of the presentations with the sexy lady voice that they just randomly program in.
I love the fact that they buy Paulie, this robot in Rocky IV, and not only is the robot so advanced that it understands things like sarcasm and when people are offended by it and when it is offended itself, but Paulie somehow is able to reprogram it to sound like a sexy woman.
It's actually one of those very rare robots that you learn to reprogram by drinking all day, every day. That's the magic of it, is you just get plastered from the first Rocky movie all the way to the 4th one.
I understand that between Rocky 1 and 4, we're supposed to learn that he becomes basically the biggest star in the whole world. I understand that. But I like the way that they really nail it home by showing that he has technology that doesn't literally exist. Happy birthday, Paulie.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Yeah, so 2, 3, however many more weeks of this. Thank God it's only June that is only like the stressful period, and it kind of simmers out in July and then August and so forth. But anyway, we do have a good show for you today. Dan, unfortunately, is not here as he's dealing with the dreaded dead pixel and the new 4K television problem, so Godspeed on getting that handled. But on today's show, we're going to talk about the Command & Conquer remasters, which, Chris, you reviewed this week. And then a little bit later, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Sony Future of Gaming presentation, because there is a lot to cover from that show. The world has been waiting with bated breath for some time just to like even get a look at the console and the games coming to it. And with Xbox really fucking up their first presentation of the Series X, Sony was pretty much able to just walk in and knock it out of the park. We'll talk about whether they were successful or not in a moment. But before we get into it, I wanted to give you all an update to a story I actually brought you a few months ago. Hello, Kat. You guys might remember at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic here in the U.S., which, by the way, is still going strong because we've basically given up on fighting it. The New York Health Department put out a list of guidelines for sex, some tips to avoid catching COVID while you're fucking, like not kissing your partner, limiting the number of people you're having sex with, and most importantly, don't eat ass. Avoid the ass eating. Well, now that we know more about COVID-19, the Health Department of New York has revamped the list of safe sex tips, and I thought we could start the show off by me sharing a few of them with you. So first, they're still asking people to avoid eating ass, so sorry, Occams.
God damn it.
Yeah. They're also suggesting that everyone wear a mask while having sex.
That's no different for me.
Yes, but this is not a full face mask. This is just covering your nose and mouth mask.
Oh, okay.
Or
mine's
are
like
you...
mine's like a plastic anime girl mask.
Oh, yes. I usually wear one of those masks that they have in Eyes Wide Shut, and it gets really frustrating when I keep poking their eyes out.
I forgot Chris's fetish is pretending he's fucking in a Rob Zombie music video from the 90s.
By the way, if wearing a mask during sex is too weird to you, just turn it into a role play thing and pretend you're fucking Bane. They say if you have to have group sex, I don't know why they're suggesting this, but be
Capital
sure
H, capital V, have to.
Be sure to pick a large, open, and well-ventilated space. If you
This
don't
is
know...
the time for American Legion halls to shine.
If you don't know where to find a big, large, open, well-ventilated space, just locate any gay man in his 50s and he'll be able to point you to the nearest rest stop by the woods, because that's where you just go. Finally, and I cannot stress enough that this is real, the New York Health Department suggests adding a physical barrier to your sex life, saying, quote, like walls that allow for sexual contact while preventing close face-to-face contact. The New York City Health Department just endorsed glory holes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're basically saying you can have sex outside of a gas station or within the gas station toilets, but not in the cafeteria area. Okay.
Face, yeah.
That's grim.
It's our tax dollars at work, people.
This is like a weirder list than that one that was how to show love without having sex
Yeah.
a few months ago. Yeah. And funnily enough, most of the things that were on that list you can't do now.
Yeah, that's true.
And they were the safe options.
But also, this is not too different from the rules in the UK, just generally with regards to Corona and how random they are. Like, wasn't there something in the news about the rules on seeing grandparents? Like, you can now see grandparents as long as they aren't part of a couple. So you can, like, see grandparents from separate parents. But also people were saying, well, basically, this is giving you a reason to off granny.
And if you have sex with your grandparents, do it through a hole in the wall, please.
I'm curious of what's going to come next, because clearly they're going to update it again in a few weeks or something with more ridiculous tips. But
well, like I swear I'm not going down a path with this. I'm not getting heavy or anything, but it's been a real, like, the year's just been a real eye opener for how completely incapable governments are with, like, telling the public what is and isn't safe. It's been an absolute fucking disaster.
I saw a video on Twitter yesterday of I don't know if it was soccer or rugby, but it was a stadium in New Zealand that was packed full of people returning to their life because they took it seriously. And I'm just like, oh, they get to go back into sports stadiums. Meanwhile, our NBA is trying to figure out how to keep all of their players in one place to hold a 23-game season at Disney World. Fuck. What the fuck did we do wrong?
I like those photos out of Korea of the baseball stadiums filled with plush toys, filled with like Pokemon toys and SpongeBob sitting in all the seats.
This is Podtoid.
All right, let's go ahead and get talking about some games real quick. And Chris, we're going to go into you with the Command and Conquer remasters. I remember playing these games back in like 95, 96, so I'm very interested to hear how they turned out, even though I read a review, so I know.
Yeah, they turned out very well. So Electronic Arts, developed by Petroglyph, who are basically a chunk of Westwood Studios under a different name, have remastered the original Command and Conquer and Command and Conquer Red Alert, which came out like a year later because there's not a whole lot of difference between the games. And these are from the mid-90s, and they're back out now on PC, PC only. And it's a $20 package, and it's really pretty good. It's really, they've done a really good job with the remaster here. They haven't like really blown it out of the water in terms of, right, from the ground up, we've made this thing look like it's running on a PS4. They've not done anything like that, but they have hugely improved the audio, redrawn all the sprites and all the visuals. There's a great feature where you slap the space bar and it basically segues between the original graphics and the new graphics, but it doesn't kind of click between them. It does like this little fade, which really brings home how much more improved the graphics are. But as I said in my review, what they've really done with the games, because they are dated games, like the strategy genre has moved on in leaps and bounds since the original Command and Conquer. So what they've done is they've really emphasized player customization. So you can kind of have the new graphics or the old graphics, or you can have like lo-fi fuzzy samples, or you can have brand new re-recorded samples, or there's the original soundtrack or the remastered soundtrack. But there's all these other little things they've done. They've changed the way the controls work. They've added options that weren't in the original game just to kind of like bring it up to speed a little bit. But kind of crucially, what they've done is, although they've updated things in the controls and mechanics such as queue building, and you can alter the game speed, although they've adjusted that stuff, they're aware that the limitations of the time is what made those games what they were. So while they've fiddled with the games to make them a little more palatable to a modern audience, they've not basically turned them into, say, Red Alert 3 or whatever. They're very much still mid-90s strategy titles. And they've just done a really good job of capturing the nostalgia and the feel of those games, but making it so people who are coming along to them today, who maybe never played the old ones, as long as you're willing to kind of understand that, yeah, you know, these aren't going to be as slick as the games that are released now in the genre, you're going to have like a good time with them. You know, it's cool to see those FMV sequences again. They kind of look like shit, but like they were supposed to be in like a 5-inch window inside a monitor running at 320p. They were never intended to be like running on your 4K television. Do you know what I mean? So they don't look great. But they've put like a smudgy filter like they used to do on those early Blu-rays to get rid of grain. Do you remember that? Where so everyone kind of looks like an action figure. And it doesn't really work, but it's fine. There's a little museum that has all the footage from filming those FMV sequences. So someone looked after those tapes. Like, I guess they were just still in the Westwood offices. And yeah, but I think one of the key things that this game does is it's like an hour toolbox, because it has a map editor and it has a revamped multiplayer format. So all those people who still play like CNC on like LAN with the original games through DOSBox or whatever, now you've got a fully lobbied modern system with which to play those games with. But also, famously, Electronic Arts has released the source code to Command and Conquer and Red Alert. So if you're a real diehard like CNC fan, you can literally just kind of build your own Command and Conquer, early day Command and Conquer games now. You can make your own maps. You can decide how the units work. You've got the whole fucking code. So, you know, the world is your oyster. And I think that's kind of the most important part of this package. Much like when Fire Pro Wrestling, after decades, finally came onto Steam and we had access to the workshop, Steam Workshop,
Mhm.
all those people who've been playing Fire Pro since year dot now have Fire Pro, and they can do so much with it because it's on PC, and they don't have to mess around with PlayStation memory cards, save files, and all that stuff. And this is the same thing for those early Command and Conquer games. So like $20 is a little much because $20 can get you a lot in video games nowadays, but it works out obviously as like $10 a game. And if you're a fan of Command and Conquer, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't buy it. And also it becomes a nice flag bearer for what remasters, for the kind of effort and passion that remasters can have if the team behind them are really committed to it.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see the reaction to this game because it's pretty much been nothing but glowing praise across the board versus Warcraft 3 Reforged, you know.
Right.
And I think you are right. I think this does become the new standard bearer. I like that they are giving away the source code to Command and Conquer and Red Alert. Red Alert was the one that my friend and I were obsessed with for a good year, and we would just, you know, we repeatedly beat the campaign. We'd make our own maps and then realize they suck and go back to the campaign. And and so I don't think I would ever do anything with the mod scene because I just not that capable on a computer. But reading your review, hearing you talk about it right now, seeing a lot of the other responses to it on the internet has really kind of poked me and prodded me into getting it, although I don't think it works on a Mac. So,
okay.
Wah, wah.
I think one of the interesting things as well, going back to these games, is you forget how they went batshit crazy so quickly. Mm-hmm. Because the first game's kind of real world, a little hokey, but it's kind of real world. But you know, there's a satellite laser cannon in it, and that's like about it. But then Red Alert 1's a year later, and in the very opening cutscene, like Einstein kills Hitler. So like by the second game, they're already just like, fuck it. Do you know what I mean?
Let's go crazy, people.
Yeah, basically. But no, if you like Command and Conquer, check it out. If you just like a game historian and you just want to play like a modernized version of a game that was absolutely groundbreaking at the time, even if it's a little dated today. It's been 25 fucking years, you know. But it's definitely worth dropping like $20 or whatever on.
It is nice to be excited about a Command and Conquer game again, considering the last one that came out was that mobile trash. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Red Alert 2 is so good, and I'm just hoping that off the back of this, they just move straight on to putting that together again. Because Red Alert 2 is still my favourite entry in the series.
This is Podtoid.
All right, that is it for our normal games talk. So let's go ahead and move right on to the main event of the show, and that is talking about the PlayStation 5 reveal. I take it we all watched it or caught up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot of my news secondhand. To be honest, even if you were trying not to watch it, Twitter was just exploding. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what happened?
They canceled the PlayStation 5. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I know. First you can't eat ass, and now you can't play the PlayStation 5. Your year's ruined.
My year's ruined.
Well, you know, it's been
specifically.
It's been a pretty busy weekend, but from what I've gathered, AT&T are selling PlayStation to the PC gaming show.
just all of the news combined into one headline. But anyways, we'll talk about that some other time, maybe when the sale actually happens, if it actually happens. But let's go ahead and focus on the PlayStation 5 reveal. Going into the show, we didn't quite know what to expect, other than there would be a lot of games, and there was a real big question mark surrounding the console itself. Would we be able to see it? Because Sony has been coy about showing it off for months. I mean, at CES, they just showed off that basic bitch PlayStation 5 logo, and then a couple weeks later, we saw the controller. And so it's just kind of been this weird lead up to showing off the console, and they may have had reason to resist showing it off for so long, because it wasn't a universally praised when we all got a look at it. Occams, I want to start with you. What do you think of the look of this console?
Well, I'm alone in this thought, but I really like the design of it. I like that it had a curve to it. I like the kind of line that sort of intersected and against those like hard straight lines. I thought it was interesting design. Thought it was unique. And people complaining about how it won't fit on the shelf. I can understand that. People complaining about it doesn't go with the aesthetics of their console. I don't quite understand because it's like, well, first you got to clear all those Funko Pops off your shelf to fit anything on there anyway. I think they're trying something a little different, and I like that. And I think that even if we're talking about it, and people are like, I don't like the design of it, the design of the console, like the actual aesthetics of the box itself, has to be the last fucking thing anyone considers when buying one of these machines.
Yeah.
You can have an opinion on it, but that's not going to dissuade you from buying it. And two, we are all talking about it. Like it or dislike it, it is in our brains. We are discussing it. So I think this is a good example of, there's no such thing as bad publicity for this.
I think because they came out with the two different consoles. There's the digital version, and then there's the standard version that has a disk drive to it. And I prefer the look of the digital one versus the one with the disk drive, because that disk drive kind of just looks like a tumor on the design. Because you look at the digital one and it's all just kind of sleek and narrow, and you look at that one and there's just this weird lump that needs to be checked out by a doctor, and it's like, okay, well, I like the more sleek design of the digital version, but you are right. It is the least bothersome aspect of getting a console of what it's going to look like, because honestly, like, I don't even care for the design of the PlayStation 4. It's just a box to me. At a certain point, that's what this is going to become. It may have been a bit of a shock when I first saw it, like, oh, this is there are pointed edges on this thing. That's going to be fun if I accidentally trip and fall face first into that. But I'm like, I'm just going to put this behind my television and never see it again. So it really doesn't matter to me what it looks like. I'm kind of glad they didn't cave on the coloring of it so that it actually goes with the controller. Because I know that a lot of people hated the black and white design of the controller, and Sony stood its ground on that, essentially, with this console design. I saw some people putting out some all black versions of the console, and just like the controller, I think they're very ugly. So yeah, I don't mind the design. I don't really like it. It's certainly more interesting than what Xbox is doing with the Series X refrigerator, but ultimately it's just going to be something that I'm barely going to look at.
Yeah, and the memes and things people have made have been very funny.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed that quite a bit. I was thinking about the PlayStation 4 design. It always reminded me of a building on a Blade Runner.
With the with the slats and the little glow. Yeah. Charlotte, what about you?
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of the design. I'm not a fan of the curved aesthetic, if I'm totally honest. To be honest, when I look at the PS4, I think that's just my ideal console design, like the slim model, just very compact. It's entirely black, and it just looks like a box. Because, I don't know, it just looks like something that's trying to look futuristic and like it's going to date itself in 10 years' time. And also, I'm not a fan of the white because of practicalities. If you're going to have the controller in your hands, or the console less so, because you're not going to be touching the console, but it might attract dust, and that might show up more on a white console. But definitely with the controller, the white bits are going to deteriorate pretty rapidly. And I mean, if you ever look at like the whitish consoles of the 90s and people who sell them after they've smoked indoors with the consoles lying around, they always have this horrible tobacco yellow color to them, which is just why I don't like white consoles in general. But I'm pretty sure they're going to release a different color version or special editions at some point. And this is all like not a big deal to me anyway. It's the least important thing to me of the whole package. I would say though, with the disc drive and the non-disc drive version, I worry very much about switching to mainly digital, because I live in a country which is sometimes considered one of the most developed countries in Europe, and yet it has some of the worst internet. Like its
Right.
infrastructure is completely overloaded. There's too many people living in big cities. So even in big cities, your internet is absolute shite. So I can't see it pushing towards digital being a good idea in many countries, in many cities, in many smaller cities, in many rural areas. That would just be a disaster. So that's something that concerned me a bit when I was seeing the chatter about pushing towards digital. But the aesthetic, it's not my thing, but it's not a big deal.
I will say with the digital version, initially, like right away, I was like, oh, I'm going to get that one. I'm just going to go all digital and forget all physical media going forward. But then I had the question of, will it be a possibility to get the games that I own physically for the PS4 onto that digital version? Like, if I still own them, can I get a digital version to download or whatever? But then I thought also about how I will be limiting myself in terms of being able to rent games from like GameFly, because that's not going to be an option. My only option in that case is going to be the PlayStation Now streaming service, and in comparison to the Xbox Game Pass, it's nothing. It's just child's play at that point. They need to really step it up if they're going to have this all digital console, because getting games on sale, getting games to rent, borrowing games is going to be either non-existent or far more waiting that I'll have to do in order for something like that to happen. Like games on retail go on sale, drop in price, especially with PlayStation and Xbox. They drop in price pretty quickly, physically, but not necessarily digitally. And so it's like, if I'm waiting for a game to go on sale, if I go with the digital only version, I may have to wait a hell of a lot longer in order to get it at the same price that I may be able to get at Best Buy 5 months after launch.
Yeah, you have a really good point about that, because I like having a disc. It's something that I think about years from now, and I have a lot of games on my PS4 that I've purchased digitally, and that's great. But what happens when the PS4 dies or that license expires or whatever? It just those go away. I'll have my disc, at least in some form or fashion. I can access the game. And yeah, it is amazing, those those Black Friday sales, the kind of stuff you can get, the inevitable like GameStop going out of business sale that's going to happen, that you get all kinds of crazy games. Yeah, but digitally there's a lot of good options. PSN has some kind of, they make up like today it's Tuesday, the sale, about every week or so, and there's some good stuff, but they just kind of repeat a lot of the same titles and pepper in a couple new ones. And that doesn't necessarily give you the variety of being able to find those titles. So I'm hopefully with the PS5, when I get one, it'll be with the disc drive, just because of those fears of not having access to my library, down the road. So yeah, it's a good point.
Chris, what about you?
Well, I think it looks like a router.
What? An amazing original observation.
I've been saving that one up all week. I expect it to blow up anytime soon.
Locked and loaded, folks.
Copyright. Put a timestamp on the episode. It's fine. The only thing that's going to go wrong is I'm going to catch those wings and knock it the fuck over.
Yeah.
Like whilst obsessively cleaning my living room or whatever, I'm absolutely going to catch those wings. But it's fine. I'm not. I think it looks all right, and I'm not really bothered what color it is. It's fine.
I will say, to Charlotte's point about the white controller, I can just imagine how yellow the little nubs on it are going to get from my sweaty hands. Like, it's going to be a disgusting ass looking controller. At least with the black controller I have now, I can hide how gross my hands get when they're sweaty. But I'm not on that white one. The white one's going to look like a Super Nintendo after 4 years of ownership. That's how gross it's going to look.
Yeah, I don't even think it has to be all black. It could even be a pastel color. It's just nothing shows up grossness as much as white does.
I will say that if you're having trouble with that kind of stuff, especially a white material, there's a product by Mr. Clean called Magic Eraser. And it's like it looks like a sponge, but it can I don't know, it has like microfiber something in it that you can actually, it degrades as you use it, but it is a magic eraser. It can clean a lot of stuff. So if you're having trouble with stains on white plastic, try one of those. They're really useful.
I was going to say, if you own a pinball machine, that Magic Eraser is your best friend. Magic Eraser and Turtle Wax. Yeah.
So that was at the end of the show, the reveal of the console. Leading up to it was just a never-ending cavalcade of games and a lot of top-tier stuff, which is funny that they decided to kick off their presentation with Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, I get that Rockstar doesn't want to cut off the golden goose that is Grand Theft Auto Online. It just felt kind of silly to me that that's what they would start the show with, and also they wouldn't include Red Dead Redemption 2 in there.
For a split second, like it started with the voice saying, "It's great to live here," or whatever, and the first shot was a beach, and for all of a second, I was like, here we are, Vice City. Like GTA 6 Vice City. And then like the very next shot was like of Michael, and I was like, oh, okay.
It definitely felt like Christmas morning, and the first thing you open is a pair of socks.
Occam's. We're at the age now where every Christmas morning is just a pair of socks.
Man, you ain't kidding. Dude, one Christmas years ago, my parents paid my rent, and that was like the nicest and saddest Christmas I've ever had.
One year in college, my parents, for my big gift, bought me a printer.
Oh, man. Okay, so my high school graduation, right? Day I graduated high school, fucking flipped off to school, ran home, smoking a cigarette, got the pack rolled up in my sleeve like I'm a Greek. No, I didn't do any of that. I went to McDonald's, but yeah. I did graduate high school. And my one of my friends got a cruise, an Alaskan cruise as a graduation present. One of my friends got just $1,000 in cash. My mom hands me this box, and I'm super excited because I'm thinking like, okay, this is a PlayStation or, something awesome.
Yeah.
It was a wireless, like a cordless telephone with a built-in answering machine. And I didn't mean to. I made my mother cry by asking if she kept the receipt.
Oh, you fucking hell.
Yeah, well, I was 18. What are you going to do? Yeah, that was fun.
By the way, would you like to know the gift that I got my parents the year they got me a printer? I got them remote control cars of vehicles they actually wanted to buy, but couldn't at the time. So I got my mom a Chevy Avalanche remote control car, and I got my dad some Ford truck that he wanted remote control car. And boy, did they play with it all day Christmas, and then I'm pretty sure put it directly into their closet and never picked it up again. But at least mine had thought to it. It wasn't a goddamn printer.
Absolutely.
Mate, and you just sat there printing out that demo page over and over again, and it was the best fucking Christmas ever.
Making sure I kept the list of all the different types of inks I'm gonna have to buy from now on because this thing guzzles it down. Yeah. That Christmas. Woo. Anyways, after GTA 5, they showed Spider-Man Miles Morales, and this announcement quickly had the wind taken out of its sails because a Sony executive said the game wasn't a sequel but was more of an expansion of the PS4 Spider-Man, only to then have the developers walk back that statement by saying it is in fact a sequel. For me, when I first saw the trailer, I thought it would be something along the lines of Infamous First Light more than a built from the ground up sequel. Like, the trailer didn't show all that much. It mostly just looked like the same New York but covered in snow and decked out for Christmas. So I can see a lot of assets from PS4 Spider-Man being brought over and spruced up for Miles Morales, especially because it looks like it's going to be a launch title. And it makes sense to make it a launch title because Spider-Man sold like 15 million copies and everyone fucking loves Miles Morales. But yeah, it seemed like everyone was excited, and then there was a little bit of disappointment, or not a little bit, a lot of disappointment when they said, oh no, it's more of an expansion. And then when they walk back that statement to say it's a sequel, you're kind of like, well, what is this game? And there were a lot of jokes about Sony's handling of it, but I'm excited for it, even if it does just turn out to be like an 8-hour game that's set in the same world with a bunch of collectibles like go collect and shit.
Did you see when Insomniac Games on Twitter said, "Oh no, actually this is what it is." Someone replied saying, "What's your source?"
That's good.
Oh gosh, internet people, am I right?
Mm.
Yeah.
It looks fun though. I mean, I love the Spider-Man game, despite my better nature. And That was such a fun time with it. Yeah, hell yeah, let's go back there. Let's play in that world some more.
Yeah.
And I don't read the comics, so Miles Morales, I know of him, but I don't know a lot about the character. I certainly don't know him in the books, so I'm kind of cool to find out more about him too.
He's one of my favorite characters to use on my team in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. So I could just imagine how they're going to take his powers from that game and put it into something a little more well developed in Spider-Man Miles Morales. So I'm excited about it. If I get a PS5 at launch, that'll obviously be one of the titles I get. Rather than go through each and every game they announced, because there were so many fucking trailers in this show, I thought it'd be better if we just kind of each of us talk about the game that piqued our interest the most. And Chris, I want to start with you because you covered the show and wrote about some of its bigger games, and also NBA 2K21. So, what is the game that you saw from the show that really kind of spoke to you?
There was nothing really in that show that's my kind of game. I'm not going to lie. I'm not being a game wanker there, but there just isn't. But there was plenty of stuff that I enjoyed. Like, I thought the cinematics for the Horizon sequel were awesome. Like that stuff with Aloy underwater was beautiful. That was, and I know that people, well, it's just cinematics, it's not gameplay. That's not my point. My point is, those cinematics look fucking great. You know what I mean? There was something I really dug about Resident Evil's aesthetic, and it's not even because, a lot of people are comparing it to Resident Evil 4, and that's not why. Resident Evil 4 isn't my favorite Resident Evil or anything like that, but there was just something so old world about it. It kind of reminded me of almost like Deadly Blessing or a film like that, with its dead trees and people wearing, like very
Victorian era kind of.
Yeah, very kind of, this village exists in the modern world, but once you go through the trees, you've basically stepped into a time machine. And that I really liked. And then you see that like Wolfman, and it's so Universal Studios Wolfman. It's so like, the torn pants and the torn shirt and everything. And I really, really dug that stuff. But as I've told you, see, my favorite thing about the whole show in that Resident Evil trailer was just that fucking fucked up society queen with like the big hat on, like and she was on like the ahoy hoy phone in the mirror, and I just, every time I see a woman like that, I'm just like, why wasn't that me? Like, why was that?
You just I'm dying to wear giant hats indoors and stare in mirrors.
And have that hair and the beauty mark, and also just be like, just fucking super looking down on the people, just like, I'm untouchable. But there's something great about the fact that she has that look and she has that ornate house, but obviously everything looks like shit. Yeah. Like it all looks so messed up and oily and stuff like that. So I don't know if I'll play that game because I'm a fraidy cat. But there was a lot in that trailer that I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then like Chris shows up at the end and he's a fucking wall. He's just a big square. He looks like Mr. Strong from the Mr. Man.
He looks like Strong Arm from the fucking Puppet Master movies.
Right. But yeah, so although there were no real games there that were for me, I thought there was some really exciting stuff shown.
Okay. Charlotte, what about you?
Pretty much what caught my eye was, from going through all the stuff, was Resident Evil 8. Pretty much for the same reasons as Chris gave. It just looks like they're really trying to do something different with it. I mean, I don't know if it's for me, but it was just visually interesting. And also, it's being hinted at that Chris is not a good guy, which is kind of a brave move. Probably going to say a lot, or maybe even change the ending of Resident Evil 7 and how we interpret that, which would be pretty cool. The fact that Oddworld Soulstorm made an appearance is exciting for me, because that game has been in development for years and years, and I thought it was dead. So it's good to know that it's still in the works. And I'm a fan of Abe's Odyssey from back in the day. I've tried to dip into other games, but I just love the character, so I'm excited for that very much so. I mean, I still want to go back and play the old games like Munch's Odyssey. I definitely want to get hold of that. And Stranger's Wrath?
Yeah, Stranger's Wrath.
Yeah. I definitely want to play those two first, but I'm pretty excited by that. Bugsnax was really interesting, and everybody's obsessed with Bugsnax on Twitter as well. And I watched the trailer, and it's also got Kero Kero Bonito doing the music, and they're a band that sort of disappeared a little bit for about a year, so that's kind of that's what they've been doing, so that's cool, and their music is very good, so it's exciting that they're doing the soundtrack. Aside from that, it's just been difficult for me. Like, the reason I got a lot of my news secondhand and then watch stuff afterwards is because I know I'm not going to buy this for years, so there's almost no point in getting excited because I'm not going to play any of this for a couple of years. But also Pragmata, I wouldn't say it was a highlight. It just left me confused. I didn't like. There was too much going on in that trailer. I was like, what? Is this really going to work? Because they're flying around and then there's a dust cloud and then they're on the moon. Like, I don't know. There's weird stuff going on with Pragmata. I'm not sure. It's very got Hideo Kojima stamped over it, hasn't it?
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought when I saw that, when the trailer first started showing. I'm like, are they already showing off Hideo Kojima's next game? But then, no, they're not.
I don't know. It's also just nice to hear people getting excited, other people getting excited. Like, I have a couple of people I know who are big fans of Hitman, so that Hitman 3's been announced is it's just joyous to see other people's joy in that there's more Hitman coming. Grand Theft Auto 5, it was kind of annoying to see that, to be honest, because they were like, and there's new content. I'm like, oh damn, I've started playing that game a week ago. But yeah.
I'm sure the new content's just going to all be for Grand Theft Auto Online.
Okay. In that case, I'm not interested because I deliberately bought the standard edition knowing that I would not be diving into online. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, then eventually you could just upgrade for free when you do get your PlayStation 5 in 2027. For me, I have to agree with you, Charlotte. Bugsnax looks fantastic. It was absolutely my favorite game of the show. I don't really know what it's about. All I know is you eat bugs that look like food, and then parts of your body change to look like that food. Like, you can have hot dog hands. Right. Can you have hot dog hands in the Demon Souls remake? No, and that's why it's shit. Because you can't have wiener hands.
I want to point out, too, that on paper, Bugsnax is a nightmare. Is an actual nightmare people would have.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I saw that trailer. I was like, oh, this is a fucking nightmare. It looks really cute, but it's also horrific.
It's what happens if you accept the gift in Resident Evil 7.
No, there's some really creative kind of creatures in it. I like the centipede that's like a rack of ribs. Yeah. And there was like a spider that's an upside down pot of fries with the fries making the legs.
Again, all nightmares.
In another world, we would have got to the end of that trailer and then it would have come up on the screen, Silent Hills.
Yeah, really.
This is a description of the game from the developers. Quote, in this first-person adventure, you play as a journalist who received a mysterious film from the disgraced explorer Elizabeth Megafig. She's invited you to Snacktooth Island to witness her latest and greatest discovery, Bugsnax. Lured by the promise of a great story, you travel to the island to interview Elizabeth and her group of misfit grumpses. I guess that's their word. In pursuit of the big scoop, you get caught up in hunting Bugsnax, feeding grumpses, and solving the mysteries of the island. Apparently, the game is going to use all of the functions of the PlayStation 5 controller, and something that was casually left out of the presentation, it will also launch on the PlayStation 4. So, Charlotte, you won't have to wait, actually, to play this game.
Yeah, there were a couple of things where it was like, oh, and PS4. I think Oddworld as well, Soulstorm as well. I'm pretty sure that's coming out on PS4. So I was like, oh, okay. Then this is still for me, and I won't have to wait 20,000 years.
Besides Bugsnax, I really like the trailer for Ghostwire Tokyo. I've been on a Studio Ghibli, yes, Studio Ghibli, whatever it is. I've been on a kick on that with HBO Max as of late, and so I've been really getting into the aesthetics of Japan and Tokyo, and that just looks so clean and stunning. And really, the look of Tokyo in that game just actually made me more excited about the first Yakuza game that's going to be built for the ground up for the PlayStation 5 because those are like already the best looking games on the PS4. So I can just fucking imagine what they're going to do with that engine on the PlayStation 5. Occams, why don't you wrap us up with letting us know what were the trailers that most excited you?
All right. Well, first and foremost, my favorite of the show, hands down, was Stray. Because that was a game I didn't know I needed in my life until I saw that trailer. And that's one of my favorite moments in gaming is when I see something and go, I would have never thought of that in a million years. Now that I know it exists, I want that immediately, and that's wonderful. That just, you're watching. I really like the world, the kind of maybe post-apocalyptic-y, robot-y thing going on. You got some cyberpunk, sci-fi elements, and then it slowly dawned. I remember in the comments in Destructoid, people were like, "Hold up, wait, do you play as the cat? Tell us you play as the cat." And then everyone, when you play as the cat, like, you fucking play as the cat. It was great. It was wonderful. I like you. You want to make a game better for me? Let me play as the cat, hands down.
And that game has been in development for like 5 years.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it until the PS5 thing. So I'm so glad that it's coming out. It looks wonderful. I'm very excited about that. Other trailers that really got me going, Deathloop, because I'm actually playing Dishonored 2 right now. Just such a great game, and to see what Arcane Studios have been up to, it looks very similar to the play style of Dishonored. But I'm okay with that kind of playstyle of Dishonored meets like a Quentin Tarantino, I don't know what hardcore action, blaxploitation, grindhouse film pastiche kind of thing. And that's a whole lot of stuff in the blender. Will it work? I certainly hope so. But they've given me no reason to think it wouldn't because they know what they're doing when they make these kind of games. Bugsnax is a nightmare, and I don't trust it. Let's see here. The Resident Evil trailer. Yeah, we've talked about it. It looks fucking great. It's Resident Evil 8. Hell yeah. Let me think what else. And then the Demon Souls remake, remaster, whatever the hell you want to call it. That's that's a dream come true for a lot of us. I bought Demon Souls when it came out because I think I had just finished. I was unemployed. I just need something to do. And it was a weird, fun game. And it's going to be really interesting, not just to play it again after so many years, but to kind of see everyone's the hindsight takes of folks who played it originally, and then the folks who love Dark Souls but never had a chance to play this. This is going to be really interesting to read those articles. And if you like Ghostwire Tokyo, check out a Xbox game called Breakdown, because it's a very similar kind of a style of first-person kind of combat. And the Goodbye Volcano High game looks like all those games that look like that. So I hope it's good, but I think I'm about 15 years past the age of caring about those.
That'll be interesting to see how that one's received.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me of Stray, because for some reason I forgot about that, and I did actually really like the look of that. Like you say, it had a really interesting world. There appeared to be no humans. I want to know why, but I also want to know, like, I'm not even being glib. I want to know why, like, there's robots there, going back to Paulie's robot, but there was like some robots that were like homeless and were like shivering.
Blankets. Yeah.
And I want to kind of know how that works. I want to know how this society. I'm not being glib.
No, but
how do these robots have an existence? How do these robots have homelessness? And how can they feel cold and stuff like that? And is this all a part of? Did they overthrow the humans and then kind of realize that they needed the humans, or what? And why is there this one cat? So I think it does a really good job of like tuning up the intrigue. And on that note, also. I forgot Solar Ash, which looks very much my bag. I really can't wait to check that out.
Is that the Hyperlight Drifter, folks?
Yeah.
That looked real good. Yeah, it did.
In regards to the shivering cold robots, I'm laughing because I'm imagining some sick human being putting a thermometer
program. Why was I designed to feel pain?
Exactly.
When Homer finds his half-made robot in the garage and he just throws it out in the road and points down the road, and it like looks back at him and he's like, keep going.
Okay, so those are the games that we liked, that we saw. We saw that we liked. No, like that we saw. That's the correct term. Was there any that just didn't speak to you whatsoever?
Yep.
Yeah. Besides Bugsnax, and that's going to haunt your dreams from now on.
For me, I guess Godfall. I got a big fat nothing out of that trailer.
Yeah.
It just looked shiny, and I didn't. I mean, and I sometimes wonder if I see Gearbox and I just have an immediate negative attitude, and because I don't like doing that when it comes to stuff. But I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. I kind of got like these are the people that made Battleborn, and I got that vibe again. And I don't think there's any like connection. Like I don't think it's a first person MOBA, whatever, dating sim kart racer, whatever that fucking tweet was. But like it just didn't. It looked okay. It looked pretty, but it looked kind of pointless. I don't know. It didn't seem to have anything to it for me.
I had the same reaction to Sackboy: A Big Adventure. Like, when you strip all of the game making aspects out of Little Big Planet, I don't think it's an interesting franchise.
I think that's a very odd idea. It just seems like a PS3 platformer that's come out
Yeah.
like 10, 15 years later.
You see, I enjoyed Little Big Planet, the series. I loved it, and I didn't do any of the world building, so actually that might be a game for me.
Okay, right.
Might be all right with that.
What about you, Charlotte? Was there anything you saw that just didn't work with you? Besides NBA 2K21?
Well, it's really just what I already said, that Pragmata just did absolutely nothing for me. It just looked like a bunch of ideas thrown together, meant to look shiny and fancy. And I was just didn't do anything for me, It's just, yeah.
It's like an iPhone commercial.
Yeah, and I guess in general I'm just a bit skeptical, even though I'm happy for people that are happy for GTA 5 to come back. I'm just having these constant questions in general. Why do we need everything that was on the previous generation to be on the next one, and why does there have to be remasters and remakes of absolutely everything? And I saw a bit of other people just conveying exhaustion that this seems to be the way things are, and I feel kind of the same. I don't want everything that's on the PS4 to be brought onto the PS5 necessarily. I'm happy for people to have access to it, but I don't want it to be resold as something new, if you know what I mean.
Chris, what about you?
And I thought it was just a really solid kind of across the board, across the whole show. Like, notwithstanding, like Charlotte said, GTA 5, which was just odd. It was just odd to have it there. But not counting that because it's kind of an old game, there's plenty there that I won't play. I'm not going to play Gran Turismo 7. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to play it at all. But I still liked what they showed and thought it looked impressive. And that's kind of my view on a lot of this stuff, even the ones I'm not going to play. Destruction All Stars is a bit, look, we made a esports game, if you know what I mean. It's a bit templatey, but I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure all of these games will be fine. But one thing I should point out, that we shout out to Lady Ratchet, who is already like the internet's favorite new obsession.
Oh, how did I forget to mention Ratchet and Clank? I'm so excited for that because I loved the Ratchet and Clank for the PS4 era Ratchet and Clank. That was a great game.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful game.
There is something very interesting with that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, where it was clearly kind of a tech demo, because it was kind of like, look at what Clank looks like, that's because of our graphics card, and look at how they're jumping through all these different worlds, that's because of our storage capabilities. So it very much feels like a game where it's going to go, almost like, Super Mario 64, where it's going to go, everything the PlayStation 5 does, we're putting into this specific game.
Also, here's a character for all you furries out there.
It's the Lola Bunny of the Ratchet and Clank universe.
Right.
It took the internet about 5 minutes before the fan art started coming out.
Yeah.
Some speed painting showed up on Twitter 10 minutes later that looked like it had taken 6 months to paint.
Of course.
People are so fucking talented.
It sickens me.
But also so fucking creepy.
Well, no, this was more a nice portrait. This wasn't anything.
But I definitely saw some where the t-shirt strap was slipping, and yeah.
I guess one final question I have before we wrap this up is, do you think Xbox will be able to match what Sony did here?
I don't know.
I always thought that they have kind of an uphill battle, and I was trying to figure out what it was. And I don't know if this is it, but the two biggest franchises for Xbox are both shooters. and they're not the biggest shooters on the market, not even close. You know, you have Call of Duty, which is the #1 shooter every year. And then since the last Halo game, we've had the explosion of the free-to-play battle royale franchise or genre. And so their two biggest franchise is stuff that's already going to be overshadowed when they release, no matter how nice Halo Infinite looks. And I know it's kind of the only sci-fi first-person shooter out there, but it's still competing against all of the other shooters that just have a much bigger audience. And I was thinking about that compared to Sony, and that's all of Sony's biggest franchises. You know, none of them are shooters. They don't make Killzone anymore. They make adventure games. They make platformers. They make deviations of the shooter that they're not necessarily trying to compete in the same space as what Call of Duty does, or Star Wars Battlefront, because I'm sure we're getting a third one of those as well. And so I would like to see from Xbox a more diversified portfolio. Like, I don't want a 20-minute presentation on Halo Infinite. I want Fable back. I think Fable could be a really good property for them if they got it into the right hands. I want something like a Viva Pinata back, Banjo-Kazooie. All of these properties that have kind of just been sitting idle, I think they really should put to their advantage, because every generation they seem to put all of their eggs into the shooter basket. You know, it was Halo in the first with the first console, and then it was Perfect Dark Zero with the Xbox 360, and then they definitely fell behind here on the Xbox One era. And I want them to go back to the more adventurous game development. I can't think of the word right now. Just the larger variety of games and game types that they made for the Xbox 360. I think that's what I want to see from them. I don't want to see more shooters.
Yeah.
We've talked about like the next generation on this show like a whole bunch of times, and we've said this before, but it feels like the Xbox is coming from the underdog position, and people love an underdog, but like it didn't take even if people love an underdog, it didn't take very long for everyone to just be like praising that PlayStation presentation. And I can't believe that the console was still a thing. I've been through all of them, but like people are already just like, well, whatever Microsoft show next week, it's not going to match up to that. Exactly. And it's like, well, so you're an underdog and you also are going second. So it better if that show opens with like a snowy fucking Denver or Washington and a grizzled guy turning to the camera in first person and going, "Come on, they've taken Washington," or whatever, I'm just going to be like, "Oh, fucking really?" Like,
well, I'll tell you what the show's going to open with.
Follow appears on screen and a little objective thing that says like, follow the captain to the first check to the first drop zone. I'll be like, really? Like,
their show is going to open up with a shot of the beach, and then it's the cast of Grand Theft Auto 5. Just to let you know, Grand Theft Auto 5 is also coming to Xbox Series X.
Oh, but what if it's that? It's cast of Grand Theft Auto 5, and then Tommy Vercetti rides in on a motorbike, and it's like Grand Theft Auto 6, and we have the exclusive reveal of it.
Yeah, I think with Xbox, you mentioned like how Halo was their like defining game for the Xbox, and it was the biggest game in the world for a little while. I mean, we played it religiously, and the PS2 was like every Final Fantasy, every Katamari Damacy, every weird game we played on PS2. Xbox was Halo.
Yeah,
that was it. That was the only thing we played on it because that's all we wanted to play on it. And I miss liking Xbox a lot because it was a fun system. But the games aren't there for me. That's what I'm after. Always after the games. I don't care about 30 FPS versus 60 or whatever. I want the games. That's what I need. That's what I'm there for. Why I keep coming back to these systems. And yeah, you mentioned Fable. Nail on the head, man. If they can deliver that. So I love Fable, and if they can deliver that sort of experience, kind of tap into a huge wealth of resources and talent, deliver those experiences, I think they have a chance, you know. And I think what they're doing right now, they do well. Like the Xbox Game Pass, I know is just like the thing. Everyone loves it. It's amazing. Everything I've read, like if I had an Xbox, first thing I would do after set up my account was get that Game Pass. But
if they come out with a digital only version of the Xbox Series X, there's going to be no question I'm going to buy it because I'm just going to get that in Games Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But give me something interesting, man. Give me some, I don't know, some weirdo RPG, something a little more outside, because I don't want to play shooters much anymore. I like them okay, but, you know, give me something fun.
Commission Alan Wake 2.
Shit.
I was gonna say everything I've just said. Like, you can discount all of that if the show opens and it's fucking Killer Instinct 2. Then I'm like, all right, forget everything I just said. I'm buying an Xbox.
Yeah.
In a way, Xbox also has a little bit of an advantage from what I've understood, for people who are fans of driving games, because Gran Turismo has been sort of disappeared for a little while, and Forza has a strong following now. But that's just like a very niche category of people who like games. I feel like with Xbox One, they tried to do a couple of interesting things, but it just wasn't enough. And the games that they put out as exclusives at the beginning just didn't impress enough to carry that console by themselves. Like Sunset Overdrive and Dead Rising 4 as well ended up being a bit of a damp squib. I think Sunset Overdrive, if I remember correctly, people liked it. It's just it wasn't as well liked enough to be a big carrier of the console, and it eventually did come to the PC anyway. Yeah. So it's got that disadvantage going for it, that because it's a Microsoft product, the stuff's probably going to come to a PC at some point anyway. So for PC owners, it's like, well, why should I buy this console when I've got a PC? So it's got that sort of problem going for it as well. I think it really just does need to invest in, you know, having some interesting games going for it at the beginning, because that's what it struggled with before. And there's plenty of franchises that could be reinvigorated, like all of the Rare replay. Where's Conker?
Mm-hmm.
We need Conker in these times.
We really do. Like, they could make a fucking amazing Conker's Bad Fur Day just right now with everything. It would just 2020. It could be the 2020 edition. That's it. And then they can make another one for like the past decade of shit.
Well, they made, or they were working on a sequel to Conker's Bad Fur Day that was going to be exclusive to the Xbox, but then Microsoft told them to make the Conker's Live and Reloaded or something, whatever it was called, just the remake instead. So there is the idea, and I don't know if anyone who was working on that sequel is still with Rare, because Lord knows most people have dropped off into other development teams. But I mean, it's interesting that Microsoft spent so much money to buy Rare and then has done so little with it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It truly is. I mean, you never know, like, how the sausage is made with these things, and that it's not just as simple as we'll make the game, that there's a lot of wheels that have to turn and things have to fall in place for these games to happen. And God knows the process from a game and the idea on paper to getting released. But like, it does seem like just a catastrophic waste of talent.
Yeah.
To own such an incredible studio, and then, you know, we look years later and this is what they produced, and it's sad.
Case in point, Battletoads.
I try to be kind of positive about these things, and I said at the top of the hour, like, I don't know, and that's because we don't know. Like, they could show up and have this amazing game plan. Do you know what I mean? Like, they really could, but they are coming from like not only a position of we need to win back the people. They're not only coming from that position, but also that they're going second after what's not only been a really strong presentation from Sony in a content sense, but was also a really strong presentation as in, because of its format, people weren't bored as fuck.
Right.
Which, to be honest, I think helps when you have, even if some of those games were just kind of mid-interest to people, the format meant that people were just like, well, it doesn't matter. There's going to be another game along in 30 seconds.
Exactly.
As opposed to where with when they'd bring someone on stage and you'd realize what the game is, and you knew that you could basically tune out for 10 minutes if you weren't interested. But because they were like pow, 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 just putting these games out, people walked away going like, this is the best presentation Sony's ever done at E3. So it's an uphill battle, is what I'm saying. But I'm not saying they can't do it, but damn.
Yeah, it'll be tough. Any final thoughts on the future of games presentation?
My only disappointment, and it is a pretty big one, was no Silent Hill. But that just is hope springs eternal. You know, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but every little announcement thing, I always, in the back of my mind, there's this tiny little voice saying it could be.
I'm disappointed that we didn't get, in the middle of trailers, long shots of just like the auditorium watching a big screen. I really miss those.
I don't really have much to add except for this is probably the only opportunity I'm going to have to mention the PC gaming show yesterday and the fact that Persona 4 Golden is now on the PC. And I'm just disappointed. Like, I'm really happy about it. It's one of my favorite games, but it is a highly problematic game. It's got a pretty weak plot in parts, and I'm just wondering, where the hell is Persona 3? Bring Persona 3. I want Persona 3 before I want Persona 4 on the PC. So, yeah, I'm hoping that there will be some sort of announcement about that in maybe at the latest next year's PC gaming show, whatever.
It's got to be coming. Like, there's no, surely if they're taking this step, like, it's got to be coming. And while you're at it, bring the dancing games because they're great as well. So. Also, if you put those dancing games out there on PC, then modders can take those amazing character models from the dancing game and substitute them into Persona 3 and 4. And that'd look fucking well good.
Or they can take those amazing models from the dancing games, remove them, and put in CJ from Grand Theft Auto 3. No, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. No, yep. Fuck it. I'm going to cut that out.
I thought at first you just meant CJ as in yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I really should have picked a different character than CJ. It's just he always gets put into everything.
It's a bold move referring to yourself in third person.
Well, I am that type of dick.
You're a fucking pro wrestler or a film director now.
All right, CJ's had enough of this shit, so we're just about out of time. But before we go, Occams, we have a shout out this week?
Yeah, I want to give a community shout out to Leteri, celebrated a birthday. So happy birthday, Leteri. And a personal shout out is to my dear friend Ben, who informed me he'd been listening. So if you're listening right now, buddy, thanks for listening. I love you.
Also, like, we have forums now. Destructoid has forums, and they're really slick. They're nicely done. They've been put together by our beloved community team, and you should go check them out. And there's a store with some shirts on it, and there should be a special shirt going up by the time you hear this. But no, the forums are really cool. Our community is great. You should go and join them. Just behave yourselves, yeah?
Yeah. Let's keep it civil, people. That is it for this episode of Podtoid. On behalf of Charlotte, Chris, Occams, and myself, thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or the Destructoid YouTube channel.